Welcome again to the United in Diversity, and we want to welcome everyone who is watching us online and those who are watching maybe a number of days, weeks, months, or even years after the recording of this program. We want to welcome you back to the United in Diversity, the program where we learn about different cultures around the world. Today, we have a privilege to be traveling to Tanzania. And with me here, we have a few people who will be taking us on a special journey to Tanzania. But before we do that, I want to give a disclaimer for a program that views expressed on this program don't reflect bias. They are simply opinions of our program participants. So if you have questions about whatever we say here, please contact us. We will be sending you the information at the end of the program. So without further ado, let us travel to Tanzania by starting with introduction. Please introduce yourself to our audience, starting on my right side.
My name's William Daniel Tiengo. I'm a faculty in the Department of Business here at IS.
How long have you been here?
It is going to be exactly 3 years in August.
Okay, are you married? You have children, maybe?
I'm married to one wife, and we have 2 children and 2 grandchildren.
Very good. Is she around? Is your wife around?
You can guess, the one sitting next to me here.
All right. Welcome to our program, Dr. Tiengo. Let's go to the next participant. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Eliada Tiengo. Tiengo is my husband. Of course, I'm married, that's why. As he has said, we have children. We have 2 adult children. I'm married. And of course, 2 grandchildren. And then we have, we come from Tanzania, both of us. In fact, almost from the same, we are from the same province. And right now we come from different divisions, but we were in the same division before. I have been here for going to 2 years and a half, but altogether my life in the Philippines is more than 6 years. Yes, and I work here as a director of admissions and records, for IS.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Tiengo, and welcome to our program. Let's go to my left here. Can you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Good afternoon and happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
My name is Safiri Allen from Tanzania, born in Tanzania as well. I'm here doing PhD in business. I've been here also for 4 years. I'm married, and I have 2 children.
Very good, very good. And I believe you're about to finish your PhD?
Yes, yes.
Very good. So we're able to hear from you before you leave this campus. I have the next question. Now that we know you, I want you to tell me, let's start on this side. What do you like the most about your culture? I know you probably don't come from the same province. And so let me start on this side because they come from the same province. So most likely the culture will be a little bit more similar. What do you like about your culture? If somebody says, well, what's unique about Tanzania? What would you say?
All right. First, I should say this. Tanzania, we are more than 120 tribes.
Oh, wow.
So I belong to one. We are, for those who knows the map how Tanzania is located, we are from the Kilimanjaro side. That is popular. And one thing that I like the most, I can say, food. Food. I have to say that because I'm still here and still longing to have that taste.
Well, what kind of food is there? What makes it so interesting that food is it's like something you haven't seen anywhere else? What is it?
We have the way we prepare the fresh tender baby corns, and we mix them with fresh tender beans, just harvest. The taste is still delicious, and the food by its name, we call it kibulu. That is my language.
Well, let me go back to the previous statement you made. When it comes to the 120 tribes, do they speak 120 languages?
Yes, please.
Wow, but they are bound by one national language, right?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is Swahili.
Swahili. Now, coming back to the food part, when you have a visitor visiting you, how is that food culture? How does it play?
It is very important because it depends what type of a visitor who is coming. And
Important visitor, let's say the president of IAS comes to your place to visit you in Tanzania. How will this food culture come in?
now, if you talk as Tanzania general, what I believe, maybe Sir will also tip in it. As I said, food is very important. We depends with the style, but the most important that the delicacy of the thing, the food that will be there, the visitor will be asked to taste at least one or two of the major food that we all cherish.
Okay.
And one of the common that we all cherish from the side where we come from, I don't know, we call it the stiff porridge.
Okay.
It made from corn maize.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So if you want to eat a lot of corn and baby corn, we need to travel to his place in Tanzania. Let's try in another province. You come from the same province as Safiri?
No.
No? Okay. So what is unique? What is something that you really like about your culture? That you feel like, this is really nice in my culture?
You know, it's quite challenging for a Tanzanian to be asked, what do you like about your culture? Because as he says, we have 140 plus cultural groups.
Yeah.
And between me and my husband, we have different culture.
Okay.
And
That's
then-
good, because then we'll get to hear about yours and about his.
And then we have a Tanzanian culture. So we end up not really being sure what you want exactly. But I
Either
can
one
say-
will be fine.
I can say that from my community, I like the culture of valuing the girl child and the girl boy in their own rightful place. Because if you have more daughters, you are a rich man. In my
Tell us
community.
about that. I think that is definitely something unique that we will not easily find here in the Philippines. Can you elaborate on that?
For sure, you can't find it in the Philippines. If you have daughters and they are beautiful like I am, you can ask for 60 cows, heads of cows.
Wow.
Yes.
Now,
And-
that is, how is that? Does it mean that when you give your daughter in marriage, you are selling her?
Not exactly.
What is this 60 cows? That's a lot of money. Converting this in the US dollars, we may be looking at least $20,000, $30,000.
Right, that's very true. Now, I'm talking of a typical cultural community because our communities, they used to keep like 300 cows and this whole, so 60 is nothing, you know.
Okay, let me ask Dr. Chengo, how many cows do you have?
You should ask me how many cows did I give.
Yeah, how many cows did you give, if you don't mind? Or is that supposed to be a secret?
That is my secret.
All right. We'll just count your cows. Let's continue, Mrs. Tiengo.
Yeah, but again, I would like to say that once you are converted into Adventism, you know, the Adventist culture supersedes your community
Okay,
culture.
you mean when you become Adventist, you cannot receive 60 cows anymore?
No, you start looking at things differently. Like my dad, who was a pastor, he looked at things very differently, and such that my uncles thought something was wrong with his thinking, even though they were Adventists. But they were saying, like, you have beautiful daughters. How can you give them for free? You know, they couldn't understand this. But of course, he did not give us for free. He asked for something just as a token of meeting the cultural expectation. And it's a very good thing. We appreciate that he asked for something he never gave us for free. We value that. And come to Tanzanian culture, I like the sociable culture that we have. I would like to qualify that in that Tanzanians are really outgoing. We don't calculate. When we meet a person, a human being, if I see you as a human being, I see you like a sociable human being, and I will approach you without even making any calculation on how to approach you, you know, such that at one time when we came from the Philippines and Zimbabwe, and we went home, we lived there long, and then my husband was greeting everybody on the way, and then our daughter said, "Dad, do you know all these people?" He said, "No, I don't know them." And said, "But how come you talk to them?" He said, "This is Tanzanian." So it's really like that. And so that's one good thing I value about Tanzanians, and we are outgoing, we are very open, we say things the way we like to say them, and we are not offensive, but we really like to say things the way that we see them. Thank you.
Wow, that is something. I want to come back to a point you have just made, and this is for Christians in general. You said that when you were a Christian, when you're an Adventist, that supersedes the local culture. In your case, your father didn't ask 60 cows from Dr. Tiengo, knowing that probably as a professor we couldn't afford 60 cows. What does this say to us as Christians? And anyone can say anything about this before we go to Dr. Tiengo. What does this mean? Because we're talking about several cultures here. Every show we have a different culture that we're analyzing. And it is very easy in a setting like Aya's here, where everybody said, no, I'll do this because it's my culture. But this is really not in aligned with the Bible. But no, that's my culture. That's why I do that. So what does this mean? Yes, Dr. Tiengo.
What it means is we as a church, we are not simply just a church. We have formed what I could say almost an ethnic group. We are almost as a grouping, a tribe, a cultural bound people. So you come to our churches, you'll find people married all across the country. They are also married outside. There are several Filipinos who are married around our place there, and they are very, very comfortable. Now, come back to what she was trying to say. There were several girls in our family, and one is married in Malawi. That's a completely different country altogether. It's the southern part of Tanzania. Others are married within the same ethnic group. So it was easy for me being the one who was taking the last born. But it is not because I didn't have 60 cows. I had 60 cows. But what Adventists do is we don't give dowry, they call it dowry, because it is what the parents demand. It has become just as a token to show the girl that you really appreciate her. The non-Adventists, or typically ethnic groups, because we are also in various ethnic groups. There are those that are pastoral, who have so many cattle. And there are those who are farmers. And there are those who are always moving from one place to another, maybe fishing. So the amount of dowries will vary. For example, I have brethren who have married across to my friend's ethnic group there. There, they don't even give one cow. We think it's almost free.
The same country.
The same country.
Wow.
We actually speak 128 languages.
Wow.
But we have two official languages, English and Swahili. Swahili is an old language in East Africa started in Tanzania between the Portuguese and the Arabs who used to visit the coastal part of Tanzania. And it mixed with the Bantu language of the people who are around there. So it is our national language. Every Tanzania speaks that. So if you are planning to come to Tanzania, then normally they will teach you how to speak a few words, even if you are there only for 1 week. So you can see it is not only my culture or his culture. The Tanzanians today, we almost eat every kind of food from each part of the country. Actually, the major foods that are eaten there include banana. We cook banana. There are some places where they cook, they fry, they make beer. If you didn't eat a plate of banana, you have not eaten. There are some parts of Tanzania. There are some parts of Tanzania you have to have a maize meal. There are some parts of Tanzania, like in the coast, you must have rice, like here. But today, all over the country, when you visit there, you will have all these plus other things. Okay?
That is quite complex. Let's go to another question. What have you seen here at IAS that will not definitely be acceptable in Tanzania? Something you saw being done or being said, and the way or some way it was done, you feel like, okay, if you were in Tanzania, this would have gotten you in some kind of trouble with the elders or with whoever is in power. Can you think of such incident or practice?
The way we conduct funerals, it's slightly different from the way I know back home. Okay. I think home, now since we have 120 tribes, I will speak of the Pares, where I belong. We mourn. And during that time, several activities will not be occurring, but people will be definitely at the funeral and mourning for 1 day or 2 days, which I find here is slightly different, that if something happened, we mourn, but activities are still going on. Back home, especially for where I come from, questions will be raised like, what happened? So that still...
Yes. Talking about adding to this one, is something that I have learned here in the Philippines that I didn't find somewhere else, is that at the funeral service, you'll find that people, it's a coping strategy, coping mechanism where people will crack a lot of jokes, they will bring a lot of games so that they can laugh, and they will crack jokes so that the pain can be bearable. But I would imagine in Tanzania and a number of African countries, you are supposed to be very solemn at the funeral. If you start laughing, I don't know, will it be appropriate for people to crack jokes in a funeral, in your culture, in your ethnic group?
There won't be so much scene. They will be behind the scene.
Okay, yeah, but openly, can you see that?
I have not seen
much of that. No,
much,
no. And so you can imagine, even myself, when I saw that the first time, I was shocked. I said, well, this is not right. But later on, as years went by, staying here in the Philippines, I have discovered that it's a coping mechanism of Filipinos to deal with the suffering, with the pain, the emotional pain that they go through to mourn their loved ones. And it makes it more bearable. And so now, when I go to any funeral here in the Philippines, I don't judge people that they are not being serious. I understand they are actually trying to manage the situation. I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, it also varies from one place to another. I think where I come from, funerals are serious business. It is serious business that it is, there are several things that are done at the same time. Serious mourning. They mourn so seriously, but they also, from before, it was a time for practicing war games. All the young people will go out far away from the village and they practice war games. And when they come back with the, we come from both cattle herders and farmers at the same time. They'll be coming back with maybe 200 cows. They just drive them into your compound. They are practicing some kind of war game. That is not so much today. After that, in my community, they will have almost 7 days to mourn. But they will have time to do different things, crack jokes, play games, eat together. Actually, it is a big feast. My wife always tells me, in the funerals here are very costly,
Just don't die.
Yeah.
All right, Mrs. Tiengo, anything else that you have seen done here, either at IAS or in the Philippines, that you feel like, okay, this is not acceptable where I come from?
Well, I think there could be a number of things, but one thing that maybe not only here at IAS and not only in the Philippines, it shocks me all the time. Outside Tanzania is this one. You meet somebody, you say hello, they keep quiet as if they did not see you. You are not a human being. You didn't say anything. And then you wonder, was it deliberate? Was it that I was not important to be heard? Was it not necessary to greet? This is not only here at IAS and not only in the Philippines, but at least I've noticed this outside Tanzania. You go to Kenya, you may come across 1 or 2 people. You go to other countries. We have been so much outside the country. But anytime we go back home, this is one thing we find very much that we have missed. You can greet anyone at any time. They will respond warmly, and they will be so happy to be greeted and share with you. They open their heart to you. But so what happens when I come to a place like IS, I have to be very calculative. Do I need to greet this person or not? Will they respond or not? Sometimes you greet them, they respond. Sometimes they don't. So you end up not knowing, are they supposed to be greeted or not? So those are very confusing. I don't know. And this is not only me, because one time when I was working on campus, there is a young boy, just young, and not once. That's how I noticed him. Whenever he meets me, he will stop, pause for a while and say, "Good morning, ma'am," or "Good afternoon," or whatever greeting. He will not pass without saying a word. I started wondering, whose kid is this? And this is not African. It's just one of these, our community people, and not Filipino. Then I followed up. The next time he greeted me, I asked him, "Whose kid are you?" He told me. Then when I met the mother, I said, "You have a very good child." Then she said, "What?" I said, he is the only child or the only person on this campus who cares to greet. And I don't think he did it only to me. So, I don't know. Then the mother said, "Thank you for telling me this, because I have been telling my children never to pass any person without saying hello." In Tanzania, we believe that greetings is the only free thing you can give to any human being. And when you withhold it, something is wrong with you and not the person who has actually greeted you.
There you go. You have connected very well this issue of greeting with the social connectedness that is part of the Tanzanian culture. I just want to come back to the greeting part, because we have covered it in another program in the past, where we talked about greeting in different cultures, and we discovered that in Latin America, for example, people could hug and kiss as part of the greeting, and we had some experiences here, some people who shared this with us. We discovered that in Asia, for example, it was most of the Asian countries, handshake was now part of that. Unlike Africa and many countries, handshake was big part of it. And then in this specific topic of greeting, on this specific topic, we discovered that in the Philippines, in many parts of the Philippines, the greeting is just acknowledgement. And so it may be just a nod with a smile. And we see this a lot in the Philippines. And that's the culture of the people who have that as culture. That's how they greet. And once they have done that, they are as good as somebody who said, good morning, how are you? And they are as good as somebody who kissed in Latin America. And it's as good as a Congolese handshake, where they will really shake your hand. And so, again, at IS, given that we come from all different cultures, we will have to understand that all different cultures will have the tendency to greet differently. But for the sake, our own sake here at IS, if somebody says good morning, just tell them good morning. And after that, you smile. Or after that, you can kiss or hug them. Yes, Dr. Tiengo.
Thank you, Doctor. You put it so well. We worked for 15 years in Zimbabwe. And when we first went there, I was struck that when I meet my students outside, they don't greet me. They just pass me by. When I greet them in the class, they greet me. I complained, I was still new, I complained to an elderly person. He told me, look, you expect the young people to greet you. The greeting here means indabazako, which means how are you feeling? If you really told a young man how you feel, do you think he can help you? They expect you to greet them. So you have put it very well. It depends where you are. In some places, they will not. They expect you as an elderly person to greet them. And IAS is a mini United Nations. And we have so many cultures included here. We have been in so many of these parts of the world that greeting can really offend you some places. Some people will greet you when they expect something from you. And when that is past, next time you meet them, they don't greet you at all. My kids always complain that I go with them to the market and I want to greet everybody. Because in Tanzania, if anybody looks at you and you have not said hi, hello, you have to say hello. Yes, they will say it to you if you don't. Okay, so that's one thing I like about IAS, because we learn so many things from each other.
Adding to what you were saying, Dr. Tiengo, it's another thing that we have mentioned in another program, that when somebody acts differently than we expect, and they happen to come from another culture, we need to take time to ask them what is going on. Because sometimes it will be something that actually has nothing to do with ignoring us or not being interested in talking with us, but it may just be something that is cultural. And this is especially very important here at IAS. So let's go back to Mr. Firi. Can you think of an incident that you have had here at IAS or in the Philippines that was related to cultural differences? You just felt like, wow. Or maybe you got in trouble for doing or saying something because it was perfectly fine in your culture, but it was not fine here at IAS or here in the Philippines.
Actually, I was trying, but maybe, so you'll help me, I couldn't find it.
Oh, wow.
Maybe the reason, because I've been only inside here and I've not get much opportunity of going out. But what I can remember is which is not different, but which is slightly, I could have said, we could have acted maybe probably different back home. We were playing football, and if that person could have stepped on me the way he stepped to the other person, I could have reacted differently.
How differently?
With anger, probably. Like, why did you do that? Whereby I found my friend was kind of polite and please, let's just continue with the game.
So are you telling me that in Tanzania nobody takes any Any nonsense from anybody will attack and fight back for what
no.
is you deserve, or
No, I don't want to say that exactly, but we are straight taking out what we feel.
okay.
Most of the people I've seen, we don't hold much as the way you want me to hold. If you have done something wrong, I will tell you exactly what you did.
Okay.
I won't try to hold the grudge and for some time. No, I will just tell you exactly so you will know.
Actually, this is something that we covered in another session where we talked about having open and speaking straight. This is one of the things that we learned about the culture of Cameroon when we covered Cameroon, that they are straight, they speak straight, they will not beat around the bush. One of the reasons why cultures, understanding culture or learning new culture becomes very hard is that people keep it close to themselves. You have to discover on your own without anyone telling you. And this can lead to a lot of problems. And I'm so glad that in Tanzania, you can actually tell the person straight and say, listen, that hurt me and I was not happy with that, so that you can resolve the problem. Instead of hiding it, hoping that the person will know why you're not talking to them anymore. They will just guess, and this will go on for a long, long time. Let's hear from Dr. Tiengo and Mrs. Tiengo. Anything that has happened. I know you came twice to the Philippines, so you must have a lot of experience. Let's start with Mrs. Tiengo.
Oh, wow. Probably this one also is kind of related to social aspect of it. Personally, at some point in time, I thought I was being isolated. Not for what I knew exactly, but somehow I could tell that I was being isolated or discriminated upon, maybe for a good reason or not, but I could see like I was being isolated in a way, not necessarily at IS, but in my life here in the Philippines. And it would appear like whether it's an attitude or perspective, perception. Yes, this is one thing that I don't see in Tanzania. Because it's very different. Because if you are there as a stranger, you know, like we say, we have 140 some languages that we speak. But what happens is that, for example, when I was growing up, I grew up in a mission station where we had just a community like this, people from different languages, and we learned each other's language. So at one time we'll decide we speak your language, we speak his like this. But when I grew up and went to boarding school, I realized that there you find people who don't speak those languages. So when we're speaking the language that we understand, another person joins, we switch to Swahili so that everybody else will participate in that. Not because all of them spoke Swahili fluently, but at least that was inclusiveness. Wow. But it is very strange when you are in a group and people go in this language which you don't understand, and nobody says anything. No sensitivity, like there is a stranger here who does not understand. I've never lived to understand that.
That is something that we have to deal with. And while I talk about this some more, I want Dr. Tiengo to think about how you resolve conflict in Tanzania. But let me go back to Mrs. Tiengo and say, here at IS, this is something we have to remind ourselves all the time, that when we are speaking with somebody from our country, we speak the same language that is different from English, and somebody who is not from our country happens to come along and starts talking with us. We need, really, it is polite, it's the right thing to do in communication, to switch to the language that everybody can understand. That is some of the basics of communication, and it should be part of our culture here at IS. When somebody who is not from a country comes along, we need to communicate in English. Even if we're still struggling in English, that will be an opportunity for us to practice our English. Dr. Tiengo, how would you resolve a conflict? I know you have probably seen that in a school setting, university, and two people are just in a difficult situation. How do you resolve that?
Okay. Again, I want to go back to the church because we are in a church setting. Maybe I regret regress back a little bit. One thing that I see in IAS that is slightly different, that might shock you if you go to Tanzania, is the way we keep the Sabbath. Every time I go there, I'm asked, what's wrong with you? We didn't see you in church in the afternoon. There, if you went to a big city today, they spend the whole day in church. When we want to call our kids, and it is on Sabbath, we have to be very careful. I said, are you in a program? Are you outside? So the way the Sabbath is kept there is that the Sabbath day is the all-day business. Actually, they eat there, especially in the cities. They take their lunch to church, and after the main service, they eat together or different communities, and then they go back. And they spend the whole day until they close the Sabbath. Now, that can shock you if you come from here. Now, let me go back to what you have said. How do we resolve the conflict? It depends where you are again. First, let me start as an Adventist. The Adventist way of solving the conflicts are the same. It might be personal depending on the ethnic group or the region where you are, where people will say it straight to your face. This is wrong, I don't like this, and we should deal with this. But in most cases, there'll be an intermediary who will go between, and then the conflict is resolved. We don't take Adventist cases, or we used not to take Adventist cases in public. We used to solve all our church problems together in the church. That is changing very fast now. And I know that is internationally, we are even acquiring lawyers. But a typical Tanzanian, the conflict resolution will mean it is a public resolution. Wow. It is solved in public, and the guy who has done wrong will know he has done wrong. That should not be done. And it should be told so. It is not like it is something special or something to be afraid of. You cannot say it because somebody must be a relative of the other guy. No. I normally make a joke. I say, if I have a problem, I don't want to sleep with that problem.
That's a very good philosophy of life, and that's a biblical, actually, principle that if we are upset with somebody, we should not go to bed without confessing that. I'm going to give each one of you 30 seconds. And tell me, what lesson do you have for anyone who wishes to befriend a Tanzanian? Somebody said, well, I really want, I think Mrs. Tiengo is the wisest person on this campus. I want her to be my friend. What should that person do? What should they know? 30 seconds each. Whoever is ready.
Maybe I can say that they need to be open. They need to be open, and they should know that the Tanzanians will always be open with them. Yes.
Thank you so much, Safiri.
Value each other's differences. It's very important.
That goes in line with what she just said. Last one.
Just go ahead and befriend a Tanzanian. And be open and be yourself. I think it is most important when I'm talking to you and you are yourself than trying to be somebody else.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for being with us. What we have learned from this session is that we need to be open. We need we try to be united in diversity, especially with Tanzanians. We need to be open. We need to be open-minded. We need to learn to greet when we meet any Tanzanian, or not only Tanzanians, but anyone here at IAS. We should be able to greet people. Good morning, good afternoon, how are you? And when somebody greets us, we need to respond. And we need to not isolate ourselves. We need to socialize, as we are social beings. And this is a way for us to become united in diversity. We want to thank you for watching us today. And if you have questions or recommendations or suggestions, please don't hesitate to contact us at united@ias.edu. Again, the email address is united@ias.edu. Until we meet again, we pray and hope that you will stay united in diversity. God bless you.